Welcome back to episode 5 of Rebooking the WWF in 1992. We are just about a week away from the Royal Rumble, 8 days away from crowning a new WWF World Champion. And on today's episode, we have Superstars of Wrestling and a live event. As you can see, I have used the World Tour graphic, so that way it just didn't have the NA, while all the other shows had a graphic to go with it. So if you're just joining us, or maybe you have forgotten maybe what's going on, because guess what? You're not alone. I forget what I'm doing as well. We have a few storylines in progress at the moment. We have Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, with Michaels having turned on Jannetty. We have a Papa Shango Coco Beware feud, as Papa Shango is displaying his voodoo magic at the expense of Coco Beware by, well, stealing his parrot, Frankie. That just recently happened. This hasn't full-blown gone, but we're teasing it. Sid and Hogan, they're friends, but they've both noted that if the Royal Rumble, that could change if the championship is on the line. It's every man for themselves. We have a little bit to go with this, though, so be sure to stay tuned. Of course, we have Piper and Flair. They've been trading words on television, and they've had a few house show matches, maybe a couple at this point. Yeah, they've had two matches on the house shows, trading wins, and hopefully we can get to WrestleMania with these guys in another heated rivalry. Randy Savage and Jake the Snake Roberts. Now I've written down kind of maybe our regular house show matches that will cycle in throughout each episode, because as I've noted, obviously we can't do multiple shows in a day like they would do in 1992 or just throughout the 80s and the 90s, early 90s. So we have Piper and Flair, Hogan and Sid teaming up to take on Taker and Jake. We've had Savage and Roberts. And it might be even on this episode. I haven't clicked on the live there, but we are going to do Hogan and Taker on the house shows just to kind of button up, I guess you could say, the late 91. We could probably utilize that feud on the house shows to maybe pop a number. And then another one being the Mega Powers taking on Taker and Jake. So we have quite a bit on the top that we can cycle through should we need to do it. Of course, we've had Bret Hart and Rick Martel, which is going to be at the Royal Rumble. I didn't put it as a storyline simply because it's only a couple of weeks that we're doing it. But that's also been a match that is regularly on the house shows. LOD, while they are wrestling the Nasty Boys at the Royal Rumble, on the house shows they've been defending against the natural disasters, and I can see how that is like a contradicting the build for your pay-per-view, but I didn't want to have the Nasty Boys losing on the house shows to diminish potential interest at the Royal Rumble. And of course, another match that we've gone to quite a bit is Shawn Michaels and El Matador Tito Santana, just for match quality. And I am a fan of Tito Santana, so I just wanted to book him as much as we can. And potential matches that we could utilize to fill out undercards at various points on the house shows: Flair against Bossman and Taker against Bossman. And that was in large part to a promo that Bossman conducted on television promoting the Royal Rumble event. So that kind of ties into it as well. We're going to avoid doing Papa Shango and Coco Beware directly on the house shows. That feels like something that we can do at Saturday night's main event on February 8th. I think, as I'm talking about this stuff, my booking mindset is like erratic, I guess. Some matches it's like, yeah, we'll just put them on the house shows, pop it. And then other ones is like, I want to protect it and have it be, I guess, blown off on television. So I don't know. I don't know why that is. Why I'm, I guess, doing that. But I am. As I am moving my notebook, because as I've noted again, I like to write things down, not just type them up. It makes me feel like a booker, I guess. We have been in talks with several wrestlers. Now, I don't have any pending contracts by any means, but we've been in talks. We've been in talks with Tammy Lynn Sitch, Chris Candido, Brian Lee, and Carl Ouellette to potentially join the promotion, but we are likely going to hold off on that for several months because we don't want our roster to be just completely bloated with a ton of different talents. Now, as I've said before, we have roughly 12 workers that are going to be getting their guaranteed contracts slashed from our books, but we've already signed, whether it be written or to informal agreements, to about 10, maybe even matching it directly, and we have still saved just about 30 grand. We will have saved just about 30 grand as we get to that point in time, and then of course that is only through, I believe, maybe the middle of May. End of April for sure, but maybe till the middle of May is when we will really start balancing off the books. All right. We don't really have anything else that's majorly going on. Sure, we've had some drug tests that were failed. This is just the news, so it's good to see that we can actually go through the news. I thought we couldn't go through the news again. Learning something on the air is good stuff. Yeah, Nikolai Volkov had got heat because he just was lazy, but he hasn't been booked. So I don't know if these guys are not aware that we just haven't been booking him. It's not him not wanting to show up or whatever the case is. So Sam Houston, we didn't talk about this one. He suffered a serious injury in a training session. A freak accident, routine drills. So it looks like he'll be out for quite a bit there. Scott Levy being suspended is something that we addressed. Future Raven. And I don't think there's anything else that we had not taught. Yeah, these are all people. All right. We have one promise as well that we already have booked for the Madison Square Garden show at the end of the month on January 31st. And that promise is to Teddy DiBiase having a match with Roddy Piper. That is not a big of an ask. I think the promises that are going to give us difficulty potentially are wrestlers that want a title run. I'm sure that's going to be a situation. If it's like a title match or whatever, again, house shows, we can utilize that fairly easily. Because like I said, we have our core main events that we're going to cycle through for a little while. But the undercards are something that we can maneuver rather easily. Now, we have several new hires, as noted, that have not debuted yet. And that won't start until after the Royal Rumble. I didn't want to introduce anybody in the Royal Rumble. Just because of the perceived, like, oh, hey, here's, the Patriot or something, and he gets eliminated. I don't want to necessarily have them start off on a whimper. So let's, build some momentum and kind of go from there. And I've decided, I think, just because of future influx of talent, that somebody like John Layfield, who we have designated as a heel, is going to end up being a babyface. So that will have to change. I don't hope it doesn't mean that we'll have to. Okay, so we are gonna have to submit the plan changes. That's not too big of a deal. We can do that, and when we air the vignette or whatever, um, we'll just have to change it from there. But yeah, so like Layfield, Steve Armstrong, and that would allow Tracy Smothers to be. Well, he's already babyface. That would allow Tracy Smothers, who we want to be a babyface, to remain maybe even just like loosely associated with the Outlaws, which is the tentative name for the group. And of course, we have recently signed plenty of enhancement guys. Again, some of these guys will not be enhancements, like your Moes, Booker T's, and Brian Lee is in an informal agreement. So Chaz will be one and such like that. Jason Knight. So that's kind of where we are at. Now, we were looking at finances last episode, and the worker deals here are not in relation to the staff wages, are not in reference to the monthly agreements. I mean, I'm almost certain of the case. I mean, we've already spent almost, or just over $1 million and a half. And if you go to a guy like Hogan, his monthly agreement is $500,000. So we're going to have to keep our eye on that, because if we have to actually run bigger venues for arguably lesser quality shows just so that we can maintain a profit, then we'll have to do that, or we'll just have to cut guys sooner than we really wanted to. Merchandise will be huge. We'll get that at the end of the month and see where we're at. And of course, the Royal Rumble, with the pay-per-view revenue from that, should help us considerably. I think we were like at 13.5 just for all the production stuff and back office, whatever, roughly. So let's say 13.5 to 15 million. We're at 9 right now. So about halfway through the month, we're looking at about 20 million total. Hopefully it's not too damaging. And of course, I think we started off with like 12 million in money. So we'll see how it goes. If we have to make massive adjustments, then that's something that we'll have to look at. So let's get into our TV and our house show for this episode. We have Superstars of Wrestling, and of course another live event. And we have this taking place in Connecticut at the Harry G. Gampel Pavilion. Capacity is just over 10,000. It says we're going to get around 20 potential. I feel like we never quite get there, so this should be a sellout, I would imagine. All right, so let's run down the card. We got Shawn Michaels, fresh heel. He's going to beat Scott Taylor in about 5 minutes with the super kick. I guess we can just call it the Sweet Chin Music, even though I don't think it technically had that name for quite a bit longer, actually. Texas Tornado. Kerry Von Erich is going to cut a promo about the 1992 Royal Rumble, and he recalls shocking the world just a couple of years ago when he won the WWF Intercontinental Championship. Of course, that was from Mr. Perfect. Well, he has a track record of making history, and the Rumble marks another chance for Tornado to make history and throw the likes of Flair, Taker, DiBiase over the top to win the World Championship. So you could probably gather here that, and we've already done the match once already, but we could do Texas Tornado against guys like Flair, Taker, DiBiase on the house shows. We're kind of, educating the fan of like, hey, this is what you could expect at a live event. And I think that's just maybe good business to just not have a cold match thrown out there. I mean, sure, that's going to happen sometimes, but Tornado still has a level of popularity where I think he can get the crowd behind him if he was fighting like The Undertaker in a 6 or 7 minute match on a random house show, whatever the case is. The Mountie is going to defeat Jumpin' Jim Brunzell in a squash match with the Pile Driver. I am a fan of the Mountie, and as we've mentioned, Carl Ouellet is likely going to be joining the promotion at some point, so you could expect the Quebecers arriving, I would say, significantly sooner than what had actually happened. El Matador, Tito Santana, is going to cut a promo, and he talks about being an expert at dodging, charging bulls, and he'll show he's an expert at dodging, charging WWF superstars, and he's going to walk out the Royal Rumble as the new WWF World Champion. Arriba! I would totally put the belt on Tito Santana. I hope, I could see people being annoyed with how much I'm praising El Matador, but there's something about him. I really like. I think I'm definitely in the minority of this, but I think because I grew up as a kid, being more familiar with El Matador than the Tito Santana of like Strike Force and stuff like that. Like I probably have a guilty connection to El Matador. Not that he's a bad worker, the characters fits into 92, so shouldn't really matter, I guess, too much. Rick Martel, the man who is going to be challenging the Intercontinental Champion Bret Hart at the Royal Rumble, is going to defeat Reno Riggins with the Quebec Crab finish. I thought about maybe making it a submissions match at the Royal Rumble. I don't really remember that stipulation ever being a thing yet in WWF. Maybe technically the first one is at WrestleMania 13, because that is not an I Quit match. That is a submission match between Bret and Stone Cold. But I didn't think that it justified a stipulation. We're going on like 3 weeks of a feud. Maybe in the future, Saturday Night's Main Event, maybe if we continue on with the feud going into that, we could do a submission match on TV or something, but I don't think we're going to do it. We're not going to do it at the Royal Rumble. Coco Beware is going to be interviewed by Sean Mooney. And, of course, Coco is absolutely frantic about Frankie being abducted by Papa Shango. He's pleading for Frankie to be brought back and doesn't know what the mysterious voodoo man, Papa Shango, could possibly do to Frankie, his best friend. What does he even want? What is the point of all this? If Shango hurts Frankie, well, Coco will make sure that Shango pays a heavy price for any harm to his best friend, Frankie the Parrot. Hacksaw Jim Duggan is going to defeat the Brooklyn Brawler with a running clothesline. It's funny with the Brooklyn Brawler. When I was looking at enhancement guys, it took me probably a couple of episodes to realize, oh, hey, I have the Brooklyn Brawler. So we'll use him quite a bit on the. Well, actually, we could use him quite a bit on house shows, quite frankly. But yeah, he'll be a regular for us for probably a while. Ric Flair cuts a promo about the 1992 Royal Rumble. Flair knows Piper is in the match, but at the Rumble, Flair is going to be styling and profiling, tossing the other 29 superstars over the top and proving that he is the real world's champion, and we are going to learn to love it. So while he briefly mentions Piper, this is primarily a focus on becoming the real world's champion, something he's been proclaiming about, and he's going to prove it. I would consider him a potential winner, but like I said, I want to go in a different direction in a lot of ways for 1992. Not to say that Flair in the future could be a champion. He very well could be, but maybe not so early in 92. Let's go to Virgil. He's going to defeat Kato in about 5 minutes with a side Russian leg sweep. Virgil's another guilty pleasure of mine. I don't think we're going to massively push Virgil. I do remember when Austin and I were doing IcoPod, R.I.P., the best podcast to focus on the new generation Not that I have a bias on it. But when Virgil started doing somersault topes on Raws, I think it was like either late 90, yeah, I think it was late 93. He did one to like Adam Bomb or something. And it was like, he's clearly watching Sabu. He had to have gotten ECW tape and was like, oh, I can definitely do that. That's just what I'm gathering from that. Now, we could have Virgil become a high flyer. Maybe we'll introduce a lightweight heavyweight championship, and he can challenge for it. Possibilities are endless, but he's just going to win here quickly with a side Russian leg sweep. All right, can you trust a snake? Me and Gene interviews Jake the Snake Roberts, who is focusing on Randy Savage and Elizabeth, and he tells Gene that he's never put his hand on a woman because he doesn't consider Elizabeth to be a woman. So she got involved in a man's issue, and he treated her as such. Now, he's promised WWF President Jack Tunney that he wouldn't put his hands on Elizabeth ever again. But can we trust Jake? So, now, I've noted that I'm not going to be promoting such devious actions. But since it's happened before the timeline, we can address it and, I guess, tease it just to make him a bigger heel in the eyes of fans. That if Elizabeth enters the ring, gender goes out the window to Jake. He's going to treat her as a enemy, as a threat. Sergeant Slaughter defeats Tanaka with the Cobra Clutch submission, and he's going to get a submission. Tanaka's not going to pass out. He will, in fact, give up. Now, this on paper probably looks like a weaker show in terms of action. But that's kind of, I feel like, going to be the case until we get past Royal Rumble. Some of these shows will be a little weaker because the Royal Rumble match itself takes up so much real estate in terms of talent, and any potential angles that we develop, we'll be able to focus on a lot more coming out of it. Now, of course, as well, like going into the 1993 Royal Rumble, way into the future, obviously, in the series, we'll probably have a bunch more angles. So it'll be a little bit different, but coming in relatively cold with developed angles, it didn't seem like the best decision to just start up feuds or something until we get a world champion even. And not having a world champion kind of bugs me. So once we get to Royal Rumble and Crown one, I think it'll be just easier to not book house shows and just in general, it'll be easier to book programming. So let's get into Superstars and see how it connects with a live audience, maybe TV with the ratings and all that. And be sure to let me know in the comments if it's a show that fits 1992 or if it's something you would just not bother watching. I will not be offended because, quite frankly, as the booker, I would probably watch the show, but I probably wouldn't say it's amazing. But here we go. Let's start the show. All right. Star and a half. Oh, this is interesting. Shawn Michaels and Scott Taylor have bad chemistry. Their timing was all over the place. Huh. All right. That's disappointing. I kind of thought Scott Taylor would maybe be a good mix there with Shawn. That's a bit disappointing. Star and a half, not bad. Crowd wasn't really there for it. To be expected for enhancement matches. Texas Tornado, getting a bit, not a big bump here, but a decent amount in North America and Europe. Same thing with DiBiase and Flair. Okay, I think this is the first time we've ever had something where a segment increases Europe for... Is Undertaker impacted by that too? Everybody got a bump up regarding this promo in Europe. Flair is the only one that didn't get anything in North America, but that's fine. Okay. Tornado impressing with the promos for the Royal Rumble. Interesting. Okay. Star and a half with the Mountie going over Jim Brunzell. Crowd was into this more than Shawn Michaels. I'm going to credit the Mountie in his heel ability for the crowd reaction. I think Mountie is so good at being annoying. And it's not even like turning the channel annoying. It's like I want to see the Mountie get beat up. And I know that on a few house shows that I've booked where the Mountie, I think, is against Bret Hart, just the visual of him screaming in pain, submitting to the sharpshooter, it's that's what you want to see. Mountie gets a bump up in Europe again, okay, and then also a little bit here in North America. All right, so Mountie has some momentum going on. Brunzell gets the exact opposite, but that's not too big of a deal. El Matador, he is excited about the Royal Rumble, and the fans in Europe are supporting him, 67%. Star and a half once again with Rick Martel. Rick Martel's popularity going down in North America despite the win. Reno Riggins, that might be the biggest drop that we've seen yet for a loss. 1.1 in North America. Star and a half, though, once again, and crowd not overly into it. And a reminder, Martel is in the Royal Rumble, or he's at the Royal Rumble fighting Bret Hart for the IC title. Coco Beware, talking about Papa Shango. Boost. Mooney getting the biggest boost of all. Okay. They also got a boost in Europe. Not going to hate that. Duggan getting the crowd behind the match with getting a star, 60%. The pattern continues. North America and Europe getting impacted for the numbers here. Ric Flair, 100%. Yeah, that's what you gotta love to see that. Big boost for Flair there in both markets. Perfect just by association gets help out there too. Virgil, half star, 55% total. Crowd still showing some love for Virgil, but nothing going on in terms of a shift in his popularity at all. Can we trust a snake? Jake Roberts gets a little boost in Europe. Same thing with Gene. Macho Man gets nothing, and then Elizabeth, the mention of she's not a woman when she's in the ring. Fans are supporting her as well. 85%, not bad. In the main event, 2 stars. That's higher than I anticipated. Sergeant Slaughter defeating Tanaka, and he looked like a threat. And we have been trying to present Slaughter as a potential threat for the Royal Rumble match itself. And another pretty big shift down for Tanaka. So, all right. So we've had, a lot of in the 60s, a couple in the 70s. We had 100% from Flair, 85 from Jake. So the big names. Tornado with an 88. That was pretty good. So let's see how this show translates. We went down a little bit in popularity. 0.5%. That's not good. We got to get in the green. 72% total. And there's no news or anything. So we're going to go right into our live event. And I know I was just on that screen, but I'd like to actually lead into it. Same day. And we're at the Spectrum in Philly because that's where it happened. Now, this is dangerous, right? I'm almost tempted to not have it be the Spectrum because the cost is insane. And it's saying that we're only going to get 5,000. So maybe we should just change the venue. I don't think that's considered cheating. But it says we're at 5,000. And let's just go to a small arena. And I'm sure realistically, the Spectrum wasn't even set up for a full amount of people. So the cost of that is just insane to do that. Especially for this game. We're trying to be profitable, and while having fun creatively, we want to have a chance, Let's look at the show. We're going to lead off with LOD defending against natural disasters and retaining. Hawk is going to pin Typhoon with a flying clothesline off the top rope. We're going to go to a segment here, not involving the wrestlers, but instead it's going to be Jack Tunney. And he's going to come out and announce that Philadelphia is the perfect crowd to witness Hulk Hogan in action against The Undertaker for the first time since this Tuesday in Texas, and he promises a great remainder of the show. So that's what I was talking about. That this is going to be the first encounter of Hogan and Taker in a pretty big market of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I feel like if I knew that, I'd be like, oh my God, that's going to be crazy. Let's go to that show. Get a good crowd in here. Hopefully we can sell out at 5,000. The cost is what is the huge thing. I mean, that was like 148,000 or 146. This is 26,000. So it's all about just maintaining our costs, really. Hacksaw Jim Duggan is going to defeat Haku in about 12 minutes with a running clothesline. Hopefully there's a decent chemistry there. Papa Shango will defeat Superfly Jimmy Snuka with a shoulder breaker. And as you can see, Snuka is not happy, which blows my mind. I mean, Shango has more momentum. He's on the rise. Snuka's on the fall. I mean, maybe he's just a legend that doesn't like the idea of moving down the card or something, or losing his spot. I don't know. But Shango getting a win over Snuka, I think, is a pretty big deal, a little bit, at this point on the house shows, at least. So we're going to go with another segment here to kind of fill our time. Shawn Michaels addresses the crowd saying he was scheduled to compete against Jannetty on this show, but Jannetty had to forfeit due to having a little boo-boo on his head. Of course, that's in reference to being thrown through the barbershop window. Michaels knows the crowd wanted to see him kick Jannetty's butt all over the arena, but they'll have to settle for taking pictures of him and remembering being in the presence of true excellence. A little bit of cheap heat there. Jannetty was never booked on the show. He was always scheduled to have time off. So the crowd doesn't need to know that. We booked Shawn without having a match. So should, whenever Jannetty returns, we can return to Pennsylvania and have them have a match. Because they're under the assumption that they got kind of screwed out of one because of Shawn. Long-term storytelling, folks. Let's go to Owen Hart against Rick the Model Martel. Martel is going to defeat Bret Hart's younger brother, Owen, with the Quebec Crab, but Owen isn't going to submit. He's going to instead pass out from the Quebec Crab. So we're going to show that, no pun intended, the heart of Owen Hart, the competitor. He's not going to give up to Rick Martel. He's not going to want to put over the pain of the Quebec Crab. He'll rather just pass out. Could Bret Hart pass out at the Royal Rumble? He could. You never know. And I'm hoping for a decent match there between Owen and Rick. Speaking of El Matador from earlier, he is in action against Kato, Lord Alfred. Every time I see the name, I just think of Lord Alfred Hayes and how he would say it. Santana's going to win that with a flying forearm smash. I think that they could probably fill 10 minutes. Now, the way I'm envisioning this is that after Owen and Rick Martel, there'd be like a little bit of like an intermission right here. So as fans are like strolling back in, that's where this match comes into play. Because as you can see, the rest of the show, except for maybe the one match, as you'll see here in a minute, it's kind of heavy. So we'll go here. People are filing back in, and then we're going to go into the $1 Million Championship match, where Ted DiBiase will retain by forcing Virgil to pass out to the $1 Million Dream. About 12 minutes. There's a connection between these two, obviously, from late '91. I figure there'd be interest locally on a live event between these two. I could put it on TV at some point as well, but it's definitely on the back end of that feud that we've inherited from the end of '91. It definitely peaked at SummerSlam '91 when Virgil won the title, but then he lost it, obviously, before we got into 1992. And I would think they would have decent chemistry since DiBiase got basically the best matches out of Virgil's entire career. Intercontinental Championship match, Bret Hart successfully defending against the Mountie, and it's basically exactly what I was talking about before, the visual of the Mountie just squealing in pain being an annoying guy, cheating throughout the match, trying to win, and then Brett just overcomes it with the sharpshooter. This is what we would call the cool down match. Repo Man defeating Jumpin' Jim Brunzell with a middle rope elbow drop. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm not expecting that to be good. 7 minutes. Should be plenty of time. I mean, I just envision Repo Man stalling for a decent amount of time and then eventually going. I mean, Brunzell's going to hit his drop kicks and have like that burst of, teasing a victory, but that's just kind of a cool down match because our main event, Hulk Hogan. Late in the match, Hogan hits a big boot on Taker over the tops of the floor, but Paul Bearer prevents Taker from returning to the ring, and they accept a count-out loss. And I know. Guys, I know. I've been sitting here saying, I'm not going to do count-out finishes, all this stuff, but you know what? It just makes sense. It just makes sense to do it, especially here where we can just, I guess, kind of protect Undertaker. Allows us to do a return match between these two. And it doesn't even give like a visual win for Hogan. It's just the big boot is what takes him out. And Paul Bearer is the one that is protecting his guy. So yeah, I mean, we're just kind of looking at a business sense, I guess. I would have had Hogan, I guess, just pin him, but then, like, when we return to the market, what can I do with that? That tended to be the booking strategy anyway. They would do, let's say, like Hogan and Earthquake, right, in 89 or 90. I think it was 90. Where they would go to a market, it'd be like a DQ, and then a count out or something, and then the third match is when you get the actual finish. So you're basically getting, I would imagine, at least 6 months, maybe 9 months of house show stuff, just to fill your cards. So I don't know. I like this lineup. I feel like the undercard has some pretty good action attached to it. Of course, we have a couple of fillers, but nothing too atrociously bad, I feel. That's a strong main event. So, got some decent names on there. Anytime you got Hogan on there, it's probably a big show. So, let's take a look at this live event and how it translates with the live crowd. All right, LOD and the Disasters, half a star. Crowd's into it, though, 77%. Hawk would not sell. That's interesting. There's no impact because, again, it's not televised, so it probably shouldn't have much of a issue here. All right, so a lot of green. That's good. And as soon as I say there's not going to be any impact, there is. I'm going to assume it's just for the Pennsylvania area. So Tony gets a bit of a bump. There's no difference here. And then Paul Bearer, for some reason, gets a little bit of a bump. 67%. A dud. Okay, so Duggan and Haku just don't have chemistry. That is disappointing. Negative star, Papa Shango. Papa Shango is not a big, good work rate guy, but we're going we're heavy on just the character, right? I mean, that's really what Papa Shango is for us. We're not expecting good matches. Still gets a little bit of a bump there. Snuka gets a little bit down. Shawn Michaels had a decent segment, 76. Productive. Very little there. 2.5 stars. Okay, crowd a little bit indifferent maybe. Nothing changes here. Martel actually loses some. I love that Owen was always giving his all. It just feels we're going to be giving Owen a push much sooner than what transpired. 1.5 for Tito. I don't hate that. 53% is fine. I mean, I feel like we're not going to get high scores. 60%. A dud. Wow. Virgil and DiBiase getting a dud. Crowd was into it. 60%. I really thought there would have been at least 2 stars. 2.5 for Brett and the Mountie. Crowd was into it pretty decently. And Mountie just suffers a little bit. And that's okay. I mean, he had a pretty good bump on television, so not too worried about that. Of course, this sucked. It's Repo Man. Yeah, and he's probably 50%. Yeah, great. And then negative star for Hogan and Taker. The finish really killed the crowd. That's good to know. And it hurt the match quality. All right, fantastic. This is probably our worst show. 61%, perfect. We didn't lose any popularity. So we're losing popularity on a 72% show, and then 61% show is no change. Riveting. All right, we have 3 new messages. Let's see how, on any news, nothing. Well, there's growing tension between Lou Albano and Tom Brandi. I'm always here for the dirt. Pro wrestling world is abuzz about the growing animosity between 2 of its stars, Lou Albano and Tom Brandi. What started as competitive rivalry has quickly spiraled into confrontations captivating fans and insiders alike. Okay, that is a bit random. Let's see what Smoky Mountain's doing. Nothing of note. Saturday night. I love how it's just 3 matches on a 2-hour show. That's crazy. Luger and Liger. Okay. I'm putting on better shows than that. Right? And Smoky Mountain. Yeah, give me a break. All right, I'm not really that concerned. I mean, I don't like seeing the numbers. I don't like seeing this number going down. That doesn't make me feel good about myself. But let's go to mail. Okay, nothing too bad here. This is the Sky Sports. So we got 51 grand there. Syndication, we got just over 635. 2.8 views. And this is the total ticket sales. So let's go to our event history. And we can just do ours. We don't need to see everybody else. There I am. I couldn't find it for a second. All right, so let's kind of look at our viewership. Okay, not a good trend immediately from what I'm seeing. So we've got our first episode of Superstars. We did almost 3.5. And then we went down to just under a 3.1. So we're dipping there. Our attendance, what is 10? Yeah, that's a sellout, right? Yeah. So we sold out, which is what we should have expected there. We didn't sell out that Superstars. That World Tour was not sold out. Primetime was not sold out. Do we only have one sellout? I think we do. And I'm going to credit Hogan and Taker, even though they told us that. Okay, we've had two sellouts. 2 sellouts. One TV was a sellout. What? There wasn't even really a big match on that show, though. But that probably ties into our popularity. All right, so we are probably going to have to. I mean, we're probably going to have to make these shows stronger, I think, action-wise, moving forward. I think maybe I'll do that after we get through the Royal Rumble. How about that? So Royal Rumble is on the 19th. So we have basically one more challenge. We have three TV shows left. Is that right? Yeah. We have challenge, a primetime, and then another Superstars, and then technically another challenge on the same day. So we have 4. There's 4 TV shows that we have to get through. And I'm obviously treating these shows as if they're taped. So like the same day as a house show like that show was not aired live. It might be aired live in the game because we get more money that way, but it doesn't impact anything, health wise or anything for these guys. Finances were at 12.3, which means we're pretty close to covering at least our production stuff already for the month. Staff wages at 1.8. I'm pretty sure this is just like the per appearance deals and all that other stuff. Sponsorships are helping us out quite a bit. Merchandise is going to be huge. That's going to be very important for the success of our company long term. All right. Luckily, there was no damaging news coming out of the Superstars and live event. We were at 79 popularity, and we have not tanked, but we've lost 1 full point of popularity. I'm assuming it is because of show quality, which again is a little insulting. But we don't have the greatest in-ring workers, quite frankly, for what we have right now. The guys that we've signed, I think at some point could help us with that. I mean, like Duggan's only at 55. Savage is 78. I'm not going to go through every guy, don't worry. DiBiase 79, Piper 74, Snook is a 47. I mean, Horowitz is a 66. Like, enhancement guy, Boss Man, 68. So, like, a guy like Booker T we just signed is a 60. And then Mo is going to be bad. Yeah, 38. Brett is obviously great at 91. 52 for Knobs. Crush, when he comes back, is 55. Let's see, the Patriot is 60. Quake is a 58. Yeah, so, I mean, the work rate is going to suffer. Haku is a 68, but yet he's having bad matches. Probably because he's pissed. Hawk is a 50. Hercules 58. IRS is a 70. That's a bit surprising. Let's see what Jake's at. 77. Brunzel's is 60. John Layfield 52. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so Janetti, one of our better workers, is out for a bit. 72. Owen, obviously, is very good. 82. I wonder what Rick's at. Rick Martel, 73. Okay. All right. Sean, 74. Sid's not going to be good. 50. Stevie, 60. Tornado, 66. Bulldog, 71. Mountie, 66. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm assuming these are going all the way up to 100 because that's what Brett's at. Brett's at 91. We have a lot of middle-of-the-road guys. You know, I mean, Flair's a 92. Obviously, he's fantastic for the era. You know, he knows what to do. But like Shango, 58, against a guy like Snuka, who's significantly not great, 47. You know, I mean, that's going to be our biggest hurdle here. Is if it's out match quality, then we're gonna be leveling out probably around 70s for a while. You know, unless I have to. I mean, do I go and sign? I mean, if you go to like Eddie, right? 72 and 92. Storm. So he's a 32. So that's going to have to obviously progress with time. I mean, he's only 22. He's better than a 32. Give me a break. Jericho. 20. Yeah, so that's exactly my point. So like Del Rey, right? Jimmy Del Rey. Well, you know, Bigelow. Bigelow's a 76. That would be probably a huge help for us. So if you begin negotiations, he wants... That's, I feel like, higher than what it was when I first looked at this. Yeah, okay. That's... Yeah, great. Maybe I should have signed him before. Great. Love to see that. All right. Who was I looking for? Jamie Del Rey. 70. Yeah. And then like Tom Pritchard, his partner, 71. Yeah, all right. So we had Brian Lawler, 60. What's Jerry at? 71. Jeff Jarrett, That's not Jeff. That's Jerry. I have it as Jerry. Come on, Bob. Wake up. Jeff Jarrett's 69. Yeah. So there's definitely guys on the free agency that we could sign to improve our work rate probably a lot quicker. So we'll have to make the note of that. Now Bigelow's at 55. I feel like that was not what he was at before. So we'll make note of that. I mean, it's dangerous to maybe offer him an informal because, what if WCW signed him, then he's just gone from us if we have him in a substantial storyline. So that could be difficult. I feel like there's just guys I'm not thinking of. Let's look at like Dave Taylor, 78. Regal, which was a guy we were looking at, 80. Yeah. All right. Al Snow, 62. So there's definitely guys. Kamal's going to be bad. Yeah, Kamal's 38. Liger's great, obviously. But yeah, Kamala was a guy I was looking at. But his skill is horrible. Star power's through the roof. I feel like for him, 78. So there's give and take here. You sacrifice wrestling skill for the star power. That's got to be the thing with Sid. If I can spell. 50, but he's a 90 star power. Yeah, momentum, obviously through the roof. All right, that's gonna wrap up this episode. So join me for episode 6 when we go with the challenge and then another live event. And as you can see, the Royal Rumble is a week away. It is right on the screen. I don't have to scroll anymore. It's right there, where we will crown a champion, the WWF World Champion, for the first time in our universe. So this is going to be episode, what did I just say, 6? So this is 6, and then 7, and then episode 8 is going to be probably our longest one. It's going to be a Superstars, a live, and then we're going to do challenge. And then Royal Rumble will be on its own. We'll do the show, the Royal Rumble show, and then I think we're going to do some, like, a booking meeting, if that's the right phrase. We're going to try to plan out some ideas, some rivalries, some feuds as we go to Saturday night's main event. That's a couple weeks after the Royal Rumble. And then more importantly, WrestleMania 8 at the Hoosier Dome in Indiana. All right, so be sure to join me as we go further along in the 1992 WWF rebooking.